All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Midnight Magic Musings channel. I am still your humble host, the Lord Cephas. But tonight we kick off a brand new series on the channel, a series entitled Author Awakening. And
Awakening author, you're fired. And I'm the heel, your ever lovable Earl of Florida. No, I'm not humble. That's his job. But I'm the funny one and the pretty one. If you disagree, don't tell me. I don't want to know, but you can put it in the comments.
It's quite obvious we didn't have a lot of applicants for the position. But today we want to kick off a new series. We are joined by best-selling author Sapha Burnell, who has come to talk about her books and the ones that will be available. They will be in the links in the description, and you will see them pop up on the video as well. But before we get into any of that, Sapha, we'd like to learn a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, hello, everybody. My name is Sapha Burnell. I am a Canadian best-selling cyberpunk and mythpunk author. I am the author of the Judge of Mystic saga, which is a mythpunk saga we're going to be talking about today at length. I'm super excited. I'm also really excited to announce that actually I'm the pretty one, and the Earl of Florida doesn't get to take that from me right now. Sorry, Earl. I just got to take it from you, buddy. I love you.
I will gladly give it to you. I'm still prettier than Lord Cephas, so.
Yeah, there we go.
That's like being the nicest person in prison. Big deal. Okay, great.
I'll take what I can get. Thank you very much.
And now you all have me quoting Jim Cornette. Great. What a great start to our first episode.
Don't bring up Warren Sure.
No, there will be none of that. All right.
I'm also the best author of Neon Leben, which is book number 1 of the cyberpunk Leben cycle. Yeah, there's even a few little blurbs from some fellow authors and people, one of whom said that it was like an insane diabolical roller coaster. Who was that? Who was it that went on record and said that my book was like being what was it? Hold on. I've got the quote right here. I have to say to the audience who are like, what is this person doing? Earl and I have known each other online for a very long period of time. So we're going to be, it's going to be like old friends coming on today. So I'd love to treat everybody here like an old friend and just kind of have fun with it. When it comes to my writing style, as an author, actually, I think Earl is the #1 person who coined the perfect way to describe my work. I am a true punk. Put that dash punk at the end of things. I am going to be subversive. I'm going to be rebellious. I'm often using things in a non-linear way. I'm often doing a lot of, postmodern storytelling with that kind of thing, kind of especially looking at folklore and twisting and bending some things to take a look at where it comes now and how it can be relevant now. And this is from the immortal words of the Earl of Florida. She will rip your heart out, then give you chest compressions and chocolate. What Sapha manages to do is tiptoe you on a line of emotional, gut-wrenching scenes that can bring you to the brink of hysteria. And with a sentence from a character, she offers that breath of humor that pulls you back from the brink. Then drop kicks you over the ledge when you thought you were safe. An insane, diabolical, kick-ass roller coaster. That is the kind of story I write. Those are the kinds of narratives that I play with. I am always going to bring the emotions in, make you feel a little bit more safe, bring in some humor, relieve some tension, then drop kick you over the ledge.
Yep.
And for those who are not familiar with Sapha's work, she is a wrestling fan, so you will hear a lot of that vernacular discussed tonight, as we are as well. Sapha, give me a little bit of an idea. Have you always wanted to write, and what were some of your influences growing up that kind of moved you in this direction?
So I always wanted to write. We have somewhere in my mom's crawl space, we actually have these workbooks from when my older brother was in like kindergarten. And it was those, learn how to spell.
Right.
And here's 3-year-old me taking the workbooks going, I can do it, and doing all of those things, and then using the sides of the page to try and make poems. And so by the time that I was about 3 or 4 years old, I was already trying to be like, see Spot, run. He runs goodly. Like I was already trying to craft stories. I always knew I was going to be a storyteller. I was also on stage by the time I was a very young child. So I started performing in various performing arts by the time I was about 4 years old, both musically and theatrically. So storytelling came quite naturally to me. My influences, which might shock people seeing as how I'm in a very punky genre, I grew up in an incredibly traditional Christian home. So my influences growing up were C.S. Lewis.
Screwtape Letters for the win.
Absolutely. Screwtape Letters. Until We Have Faces is one of my #1 novels. I love it. If you have not read Till We Have Faces, go read it. You do not have to be a member of a Christian church or even religious at all to read that book and get something amazing out of the mythology that he weaves with Psyche and Eros. It is just incredible. So, C.S. Lewis, there were tons of different, Christian authors that I don't remember the name of. I can only remember kind of the cover art, Tolkien, all sorts of things like that. A lot of G.I. Joe, a lot of Transformers, a lot of kids TV.
She's one of us. Yes.
Yeah. Dragon Ball Z.
The movie?
Transformers movie with Rodimus Prime, dude. Like, come on.
Oh, yes.
You get that, you either have Weird Al singing Dare to Be Stupid, or you've got like the symphonic rock music that's
the first 10 minutes.
Them all.
Okay,
the first 10 minutes of everybody gets shot.
You can't open the door like that and not expect me to walk through. You can't reference the greatest animated movie in cinematic history. The soundtrack alone is worth the price of admission.
And Leonard Nimoy's performance in the Transformers movie. For those of you who are probably decades too young to have seen this when it was, on VHS.
Yes.
You need to watch it. We're not talking about the Michael Bay movies.
No.
We're talking about the Transformers animated movie with eventual Rodimus Prime. It's not a spoiler. It's over 10 years old, so you can't yell spoilers on me. If something's over 5 or 10 years old, I'm sorry. Snape killed Dumbledore. I'm not going to save somebody from a spoiler that one's like, you've had a decade plus.
Wow.
No
heart. Just no heart from her.
No. I mean, you've got the first decade to figure it out. Probably doesn't.
So the Earl knows you for what, last 11 years? I have not, so I'm going to fill you out here for a second. Did you cry?
Whoa. This is a family show, sir.
Easy, Tiger. It's not that kind of show.
That's what I said. Okay. Optimus Prime, when he died, did you
My wife watches this show. Let's try and keep it above board. Did you cry when Optimus died?
Yes. My brother and I both.
There you go.
We were like, but we were both like, I was trying to be tough like a boy because I wanted to impress my big brother. And he was like, I'm a tough kid, and all that kind of thing. And so we were both like, but trying to hide it. And so it just sounded like we were both kind of hiccuping.
Okay.
A lot. This is sort of like, I'm not crying, you're crying, and like the wheezing that little kids get when they're trying to hold it in.
Right.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You cannot look at that scene of Optimus Prime and all of a sudden like the light coming out of his eyes and
the color.
Grayscale.
The gray color, yeah.
Boom. And you can't get through that. Like, do you own a cardiac organ in the middle of your chest? If you have to feel emotional about it. And if you don't, you weren't part of that generation.
Well, it's what we grew up on. It's what we knew. Now, next question. Why Rodimus? Why Hot Rod? Did he not get Optimus killed? As an adult, I can go back and watch the movie, and occasionally I will. I'm like, get out of the way.
I have a rebuttal. Every character that's beginning the journey of becoming the hero or whatever, they always get their mentor killed. Never be a mentor in a fantasy or science fiction or adventure film because they're going to get you killed. Quick.
Unless your name is Gandalf, because then you'll just come back as a slightly more bleached version of what you were.
That applies to Star Wars too.
Yeah.
The Sith, the number 2 always kills the number 1 and assumes the position. So either you're responsible for their death by accident or Oops, you fell asleep.
Tell that
That's the
one
rules.
about Luke. You know.
Oh, look! I have the most hope in the entire galaxy, but I had a nightmare one night about my nephew, and so I had to kill him. What?
Oh no! Don't that.
See, you're gonna have to.
Oh,
see,
no!
we'll
Let's go back to the original 6 movies. Like,
and then the expanded universe.
Yeah. Well, you see, when Earl and I started hanging out online, it was Star Wars, and it was, Disney had not purchased Star Wars by that point, so it was like the original 6. And we were all like, and we're going to build Mandalorian lore, and it's going to be amazing. And we're getting it from like the Clone Troopers book series. We're getting it from the comic books where Boba Fett like climbs out of the Sarlacc, and instead of spending an entire season in slow motion, he goes out there and eventually becomes Mandalore.
Oh man.
I definitely have to say I'm probably more influenced by things like Transformers, the OG animated movie. Than some of the more modern things for the Gen Z youths of today.
I see. So you're one of us again. You mentioned G.I. Joe, and Earl and I had a chance to go. Was it last year? It was the 30th anniversary or 35th anniversary of G.I. Joe the movie being released in theaters because Transformers the movie had so traumatized children, they did not release the G.I. Joe movie. Because of that, it went straight to video and straight to the 5-day airing on syndicated television. In that film, series, whatever you want to call it.
Spoiler.
Duke gets stabbed. Well, we're talking 40 years ago. Duke gets stabbed with one of Serpentor's snakes that you could like pick it up and it would turn into a rod, right? And he stabs him in the heart. And because they were going to kill Duke off, but because of the backlash from Optimus Prime, at the end of the movie, Doc calls in and says, "Good news, Duke's awake from his coma."
But why did Duke get hit? Why did Duke get hit?
Because
Don Johnson.
Falcon screwed it all up.
Don Johnson.
Screwed it all up.
If only he had his yellow convertible.
First of all,
Bridges, I'm sorry.
It is never wrong to bring up Nash Bridges, the 6 seasons of glory that were Nash Bridges. That was Friday night, 10 o'clock, CBS. If you weren't there, you missed it. It was something. That's all I can say.
That's one of the ones I totally missed. I don't think we had that really in Canada.
Probably.
Cheech Marin was his partner.
It was interesting. But you mentioned G.I. Joe being an influence on you. What were some of the things you took from the original series, not the Renegades or Sigma 6 or anything?
Scarlet being a badass.
Yes.
Lady Jane. Jane being this kick-ass, tank-wielding, amazing, strong woman. And just like, I think for me, though, the pinnacle was the relationship between Scarlet and Snake Eyes.
That was more in the comic book series than what was portrayed in the animated.
Yeah, because in the animated series, they were trying, to kind of connect things with Duke and all that kind of other stuff. Yeah. But when I looked at just the non-verbal storytelling that they were able to do with Snake Eyes and just weaving this narrative with both of these really like epically dangerous characters, but they both had soul. And I think that's the thing that I really liked about it. And I'm going more with the comic books here than really the animated show, because there's only so much you can do with the animated show. Although, I mean, the villainess is always going to be one of my favorites.
For a lot of people, for a lot of reasons. Yes, ma'am. Yes, indeed.
I mean, I can only dream of it to get to such outfits.
Did you see that they're adding her to the G.I. Joe team in the new series that's coming out in November?
Oh.
They're numbering the next number up. Larry Hama is doing it, picking up where it left off, I guess, from the IDW, the Devil's Due series. And she is listed on the roster of one of the books they're doing. And I'm like, it's the Transformer verse. I don't know.
It's a choice.
It's a choice.
Yeah.
But no, I think that, amidst all this testosterone and all this G.I. Joe, the real American heroes, and, the public service announcements to, not shoot Roman candles at your fellow children. You know, amidst all of that,
I never got that.
You were supposed to listen when they did the now you know, and knowing is half the battle. You were supposed to listen. Earl, open these things here.
We had Roman candle tag, freeze tag when I was growing up. It was fun until, you know, a girl had her hair set on fire. I don't know who fired it. It wasn't me. I wasn't looking. But that kind of ended our Roman candle tag.
Listen, they have a PSA about not spraying aerosol cans in the garage with the door closed. Earl missed that one too. Okay,
I don't have a garage though, so that's
one. Don't lay out in the sun all day without suntan lotion on or some kind of protection.
You know, like, and especially back in that era when they were only allowed to do so much advertising. And I know it was different in Canada because, I say you Americans because you both are Americans, not because I'm making a you American statement.
See, Earl, we're the ugly Americans. Didn't take long. Now the truth comes out.
In American TV, you were allowed to have more commercial content for children.
Yes.
Than we were in Canada.
And the laws had to change to make that even possible in the 80s because laws used to be you could not.
And so when we would get your cartoons, there will be several minutes where the like YTV, which is usually one of the main ones in Canada when I was a kid, they were not allowed to put on any commercial content or anything that would market to children. So instead, we would have things like the house hippo, concerned advertisers tried to make sure that kids learn common sense. And it was this little like 3-minute long video, and you could find it on YouTube, where they made this like faux nature documentary of this little miniature hippopotamus that lives in Canadian houses. And it like lives and swims in your dog's water dish, and it loves peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And so it would leave all these really cute like house hippo footprints all over the things. And at the end of this like heartwarming 3-minute long house hippo documentary was, you didn't really believe that, did you, kids? Make sure you remember truth in advertising. And all of the like Canadian children at that time were like, house hippos aren't real. What do you mean? We want our house hippos. You know, we got house hippos. And we got like Canadian heritage minutes where they were like, you know, the settlers are coming for the first time, and the priest is trying to translate between the indigenous leader and the leader of the French trappers group that was coming to meet them. And the indigenous person was like, no, you know, our village, and was saying the word for village, but the priest couldn't translate it correctly. So he kept on saying, you know, the Canada. And that's how we got our name. And like, that was what we had after, you know, in the middle of G.I. Joe and the Transformers when we were kids. We had history minutes and house hippos, and the amount of kids growing up in the late 80s and the early 90s in Canada that were like, what do you mean there's no such thing as house hippos? They were like mentally crushed.
I feel like I was denied an important part of my childhood. I want house hippos. America, come on. Couldn't you come up with house hippos or you know?
Go search it on YouTube. You can.
I will. I will watch it and I will make it short. Author Sapha Burnell recommended house hippos. Here's a clip.
Here's the Earl's review of this important historical series, an import, if you will, from our neighbors up north.
Yeah, and so I think that too, like that, you know, you were talking about kind of things that got me in childhood. You know, obviously the Chronicles of Narnia was a huge one, and Paralandra, and figuring out that there were, you know, so many different kinds of fanciful things. You know, books on Greek mythology, those ones were huge when I was a little kid. They probably shouldn't have been, but my grandma never pre-read those ones. She thought, oh, it's history, it's fine. I'm like, okay. Oh,
Homer's
Zeus, what
Iliad.
are you doing? What's this word? You know, like, who's
this Zeus guy, and what's his deal?
You know, Daddy, what's this mean? Between all of that, I'm watching TV, and you know, there's things like Reboot coming on for the first time. There's the advent of CGI and like 3D CGI being used, and they would have these, you know, short films with CGI that were really absurdist and surreal, and like you look at them now and you're like, what kind of effing mind trip did Canadians put their kids through? House hippos and history moments and this like weird fantasy world where for 3 minutes every hour, these really crazy surrealist designs would like wow, 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 and play music, but it was some form of massive machine. Like, it was wild. And so I grow up with all of these really kind of conventional stories like Transformers and G.I. Joes and, Darkwing Duck and X-Men and all that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden you've got these moments of absolute crazy surrealism and absurdist stuff. And I'm going, that would, there we go. There it is.
I've got to ask though, back in the day, at the end of the evening, after the talk shows or whatever, we would have the in America, we'd have the national anthem, the flag, then it would go, poltergeist, if you will. What did y'all have? Was there another hippo? What's going on? What are y'all playing? I want to know.
Okay. On YTV, this is the one I remember because I wasn't really watching other channels when I was a kid back in those days. On YTV, programming did shut down after a certain amount of time because they weren't allowed to play more for kids. And all of those like 3-minute surrealist CGI short films were played on loop.
That's awesome.
And all of a sudden YTV became this like psychedelic, strange, like there was this one, and these are like early CGI. These were experimental CGI. And of course that explains what I did in film school, because I was like, oh, you want me to experiment? I can do this. I'm Canadian. Of like these bird creatures and these fish creatures, and there's this pane of glass in the middle, and one of these bird creatures is like, ooh, baby, you're sexy, and this fish creature's like, oh, yay, and they're trying to get to each other, and the music is this like symphonic electric music, and then all of a sudden like they break the glass and there's all these like glass shards going everywhere, and then the birds and the fish intermingle and none of them die, and in this giant sphere which pans out on this fantasy world that looks like it was created by Salvador Dali. That's what we saw on TV. The last thing we would get would be these like beasties, or I guess Beast Wars, depending on the Transformers with
sure
Optimus Primal and all that, and then all of a sudden it would switch to that.
Lord,
that explains me as a creator so much, because my brother and I would just be like, ooh, whoa, dude, because they were all just these really weird experimental things that they were doing back in the early 90s when they discovered that computers could do 3D art.
Well, at least you have that excuse. I had a static screen for how I turned out how I do. Do you hear the voices? Yes, I hear the voices.
This explains so much.
So, in times like this, in need of comfort, I quote John Diggle from Arrow. I never took drugs. I was always afraid I would see things. This is what he was talking about. What you just described to me is what I assumed that would probably equal for me.
Canadian kids in the 90s, we didn't need to do any illicit substances because all we needed to do was turn on our televisions. That's it.
Of all the psyops I've ever heard alleged, that would be the one I'd be like, yep, they are messing with the people, man. They are messing.
I'm looking up this bird and fish too afterwards. I'm like,
I've got the links. All of them are on YouTube. They're all on YouTube.
I'm watching them.
My favorite one was this one, like, I don't know what it was actually called, but I would always call it when I was a kid, like symphonic wow, because they had these like metal flower things that would like, whoa, 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 whoa. And they all had different pitches, and then they would kind of like dancing at you. And welcome to surrealism. This is what makes me such a punk.
Welcome to Sapha Burnell.
The safe road to psychedelics. All I needed to do was look at a television and like drink a glass of milk.
So what I hear you saying is you were damaged early on. You were assaulted visually and perhaps verbally.
Hypnotized.
And this is the result.
In English, et en français. See,
throw that into the Google Translate here.
French. So in any moment, you could be like, "Oh yeah, we're watching something in English," and all of a sudden there'll be something coming on in parlez-vous français? Oh yes, oui, c'est en France. C'est en France, vu le projet de film et musique. You know, and all of a sudden they're speaking French at you. So you're not even sure what language you're supposed to be in. It's wonderful. It's the reason why I write cyberpunk and I write myth punk. Like it really is. Not to say that I didn't learn growing up. Like by the time I was 17, you know, I was quite the nerd. I know, weird. In school.
How did that happen? I can't imagine.
I don't know. I was the weird kid that was in like 6 different kinds of band and you know, choral groups and different things like that. I was at the school like 3 hours before classes, 3 hours after classes because of music. And so like the janitor's like, "Oh hey," I'm like, "Yeah, hey." You know, I'm still you're you know, anybody coming to pick you up? I don't know. Okay.
I did band. I did band for like 2 years, and I ended band because I was a big guy. They're like, "Give him the tuba." I'm like, "I play the drums at church. Give me the tuba. What's wrong with you?" So I brought this marching band tuba home, and we lived in a cow field at the time. And it's one of those things, it's wrapped around you. And so my mother's like, "Don't play that in the house. Go out in the field." So I'm out there going, "Brr, brr, brr," with the 3 brr, brr, brr. I turn around, and the cows are running toward me. And so, in my mother's recollection of it, she goes, she heard me playing and it sounded weird. So she looked at the window and she said that she saw me running with the 2 cows chasing me. And she swears that every time I took a step, my mouth was on the mouthpiece going, brr, 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 brr. I was the Pied Piper of cows.
And as I
quit band after that. I quit band, went to ag, and started cow tipping the cows to get off my, my revenge on the cows there.
Okay, so for those of you scoring at home, here's what I've got so far. Assaulted at a very young age, visually and verbally, by state-sponsored television. In amongst the fact, she had traumatic cartoons and perhaps comic books.
Oh yeah.
As she got a little bit older, she liked to sing, she liked to play instruments, and she made special friends with the janitor. That I have. So that makes the official show notes as well.
Okay, you missed the teacher that I had when I was in like grades 10 through 11. Amazing English teacher, and we would listen to like metal and rock music in his classroom with the door open. Obviously there would be a couple of us in there and things like all this was legit. It was all fine. You know, so he had this like
you have to clarify that. Makes me worry.
In this day and age, you do have to clarify it because you say, "Oh yeah, no, I had a relationship with a teacher," and people are like, "Excuse me, what?" And it's like, "What?" No, yeah. Like, so the teacher would have like open office hours where kids could come in and we would like play some music and chill and talk about literature and stuff. And so he was leaving before my grade 12 year, which is the final year of secondary school in Canada. Where I am in British Columbia. And those of us who really, really liked to learn from him were like, "No, we're going to miss English 12 with you. That sucks." And he was like, "Well, if you want to give up a few weeks of your summer and be part of an early access English 12 course, I'll teach you." And we were like, "Where do we sign?" You know, and so it was this classroom of like 12 absolute nerds who were not there because they failed and needed to take summer school. They were there because they wanted to get a step up, and they were like, "We really just want to learn from you." And so 17 years old, taking English 12 in the middle of the summertime, and he's bringing out stuff like Bertrand Russell, William Gibson, Philip K. Dick. We are watching movies, like we are doing, you know, film analysis of Amadeus, AI, Artificial Intelligence by Stanley Kubrick and finished by Steven Spielberg. We are watching, Blade Runner. You know, we're watching all these things. We're reading Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? We're reading, you know, We Can Remember You This Wholesale and Ubik and Johnny Mnemonic. And this was English 12.
Yeah, I was like, this is college. This is college courses you're talking about.
And like we did Shakespeare, and then we watched Shakespeare. I think it was Midsummer Night's Dream because it was a bit of a pipe dream.
It was Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo DiCaprio. Don't even lie.
It was not.
That's what we watched.
Don't bring that up.
That's what we watched in my English literature class.
We'd already seen the Playboy version of Macbeth in English 10 or English 11. Because there was this Playboy produced version of Macbeth that was actually like stupid good. At least it was when you're all of 15 years old and watching Macbeth and like Shakespeare is interesting.
Yes, I imagine it would be
Lady Macbeth. But anyway, so indeed. Like going through that where we're reading philosophy and science fiction, and most of us were from a similar situation as I was. We were either in Christian private school our entire careers or very close to our entire academic careers. So we were from these traditional Christian homes, had barely lived a life outside of Christianity and outside of like PAOC, which is Assemblies of AOG, I think.
Assemblies of God?
Yeah, Assemblies of God, Pentecostal,
Yep.
We were the Pentecostal Assemblies in Canada. So they had barely lived outside of that environment. And all of a sudden, you're having us read like Hildegard von Bingen and about how she was wigging out on Mother Mary. And you're reading Johnny Mnemonic by William Gibson and just taking a firm look at madness from Amadeus. And it was mind-blowing. It was like all of a sudden you left the frickin' Matrix. And at the end of that, like I had been doing tons of writing while I was in that course because he had quiet time during our like 4 hours a day that we were doing this, where we were just supposed to write for 10 minutes and then see what happened. And noise is going on. I'll need to drink water in a second. But there we go. Recharge.
Aqua. Drink water.
That's
brought to you by drinking water.
Remember, it's good for you, kids.
Until you drown.
Well, at that point, not our problem.
Yeah. But all of this stuff, and I'm getting all these ideas, and it's all crazy, and it's wonderful, and it's something that I'd never really seen before. And I had watched Star Trek since I was a little kid, but this was different. All of a sudden, we are discussing the episode where Riker has to try and defeat Jean-Luc Picard in a court of law about whether or not they deconstruct data. And we are looking at that episode of Star Trek, The Next Generation, and talking about the nature of sapience versus sentience with 17-year-olds. And it was mind-blowing. And at the end of that, the teacher took this dog-eared copy of Count Zero by William Gibson off his shelf and went, I think you're going to dig it. I think you did this. And it blew my mind again. Like all of a sudden, you've got William Gibson, one of the fathers of cyberpunk. Yep. And here's this teenage repressed child that has done nothing but, musical theater and music since they were, knee high to a grasshopper, I hear is the term down in the
That's what the kids are saying nowadays. Yeah.
No, they're not. No, they're not. That was like 50 years ago when you were a kid.
Maybe a little more than that, but yeah.
But and all of a sudden I'm reading about these console cowboys and the Matrix and cyberspace and copious amounts of illegal things going on and dalliances with this person and that person, and there's this threat and there's danger, and all of a sudden you're around the Earth in this orbital space station trying to find this one creator of these series of artworks that everyone on the planet below is looking for. And spoiler alert, it's an artificial intelligent machine taking all of the leftovers of this like Habsburg level inbred rich corporatocratic family and creating a legacy out of the junk they left behind. And you're like, and that was it. That was absolutely it. I went from a track purely in the music field. I left, musical theater and everything like that as far behind. Well, I mean, not as far behind, but close to. And
the janitor was sad to see you go.
He definitely was.
Who's going to be here for that. You always put the chairs away. Like, come on. All of a sudden, it wasn't about performing on stage. It was about writing books. And it was about this guy, which we'll talk about another day. And then that turned into Char and Ash and Son of Abel and the future books in that set too. But, those were my major influences.